All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. I think we got most everybody here. Welcome to the fall data entry training for the spring enrollment report. To try and tell you a little bit about what we're going to be doing today, we got two presenters. In a minute, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Valerie Milton of OCTE, and she's going to provide some updates on some of the things that are going on policy-wise. And so we will have her do that. And after that, I will get into all the instructions about how to use the CTEIS system to do your fall data enrollment tasks. My name is Doug Wiesner. I am the project manager for CTEIS, and I am with PTD Technology. We are the vendor responsible for maintaining and upkeeping the CTEIS application for many of you that are new. Just a couple of housekeeping things real quick. The chat is there, and you're more than welcome to chat in it. However, if you do have a specific question that you want to have addressed, make sure you click it as the question mark. And someone has already done that already. Someone's asking what the time of the break for lunch is. I'm thinking probably around 11:30-ish, 11:30. This is, we got some new material in here. We've got a lot of things to cover, a lot of new things going on. Depending on how the questions go and everything, not really sure how long this is going to take, but we will try and shoot for some time in early 11 o'clock, 11:30 to try and do a break. And I think that we're trying to do it as kind of a working lunch. We're going to have a short break for everybody to get their lunches, and then they can get their lunch, and then we can keep going to try and make it so that we don't have to go too far into the afternoon. With no further ado, I will turn it over to Dr. Milton, and she can tell you about things from OCTE's side. So, Dr. Milton.
As Doug stated, I am going to go over, first of all, I'm a research consultant and a project monitor for CTEIS, and I am going to go over some OCTE data updates. Next slide, Doug. So this is just a little cartoon that Jill put in here to show us how important data is. And it says, if the total's wrong, is the whole thing wrong? And I would say the answer to that is yes. So this is just telling us how important data is, and we need to get it accurate. So we're going to go over some new reporting and some other reporting that was implemented last year. So this is an overview of what we will go over today. We're going to go over new zip codes for 2021 and 2020 through 2022, the 61A1 funding formula, the credentials approved for 21-22, zip codes reported by competencies and Perkins course competencies, work-based learning reporting, and also the fall course and teacher report. So the new zip codes for 2021, 2022, there are some aviations programs that are currently operating under zip code 49.0101. And these programs that are under this zip code, they may choose to apply for a new program that's under zip code 49.0102. So those programs will move, if they want to move, to the new zip code of 49.0102. So those programs, if they do move to a new zip code, they will be assigned a new PSN for reporting for the 21-22 school year. And there is a memo on our website. You can click on this link to get more information about those zip codes. And I have a question in the chat. Will you be sharing the PowerPoint after the training? And I'll let Doug answer that.
Yeah, I was just typing it in. all the materials, the training, and the supporting documentation will be up available on the CTEIS knowledge base, which is at support.ctis.com. And I will touch on that in my part of the presentation.
Okay, thank you. So the 61A1 funding formula. So for 21-22, the 61A1 funding amounts were computed based on the enrollment year of 2020-21 enrollments. And this is how they were computed. So for 1 to 6 segments, the weight is 1. For 7 to 11 segments, the weight is 5. And for 12 segments or segment Q, the weight is 10. So this does not change. This is the same way the reporting was done in prior years. And if you want more information about that, you can click on the link here. There is a memo that explains all of that. So for the 61A funding formula for 2022-2023, the amounts will be computed based on enrollment from 2021-2022, with student advancement based on segments or competencies, depending on the zip code. And there will be a memo coming out soon to explain this funding. So credentials. Credentials approved for 2021-2022 will be published on the CTEIS website. Any credentials pre-approved for 2020-2021 will continue to count for the numerator for Perkins 5. And additional credentials that are approved, they are located in a memo on our website. There is also, as I already stated, there is information on CTEIS. There's an Excel spreadsheet export that you can do that lists all the approved and the non-approved credentials under special collections on the CTEIS website. So credential reporting, districts report all credentials earned. So even if they're approved or non-approved. So if a student is taking a credential and it's not on the approved list, you should still report it and go under non-approved and report that credential. Also, credential tip sheets that they can be found on the OCTE website. If you go under CTE Instructional Resources, the credential tip sheets are by career cluster, and there is a memo that explains that. If you go to that memo, you will get more information. The tip sheets include the exam information. They include the prerequisites that are required to take the test for the credential and eligibility. So the deadline to enter credentials, whether they are approved or non-approved, the deadline is August 31st of the school year a student graduates to count for Perkins reporting. So districts, you should not wait to enter a credential, whether it's approved or non-approved. Do not wait until the student graduate. So if a student is in the 11th grade and they earn a credential, please enter the credential at the time the student earns the credential. You do not have to wait the year until the student graduate. And districts must maintain documentation of credentials earned. So the reason you must maintain documentation is when we go on track visits, we need to see the documentation that the students earn the credential. So zip codes reporting by competencies and PCCs. Zip codes that have completed the Career Pathways grant process will report by competencies and Perkins course competencies in 21-22. And there is a memo that explains this. I have a chat. Many links are not working on the CTEIS website.
Yeah, I'll adjust that in my part.
Okay. So back to this memo. The memo includes the definitions for a standardized course for Perkins 5 reporting, Perkins course competency, or PCC. The operational definition for Perkins participant, Perkins concentrator, and completer are also found on this memo with examples. So there's also a new instructional design form that's unique to each zip code. They are available for zip codes reporting by competencies. It's an Excel spreadsheet, and you can find it under on our website under Career Cluster under CTE Instructional Resources by Career Cluster. If you click on this link, so you would click on the relevant career cluster and the zip code, and then click on Overview and Instructional Design. So each instructional design, the spreadsheet contains a tab for each of these sections. So if you open up the spreadsheet, you will see a tab for segment to competency crosswalk. You'll see a separate tab for instructional design example. You'll have a blank instructional design, a Perkins program overview, competency statements, and career ready practices. So when you open the spreadsheet, look for these different tabs within the spreadsheet. So on each instructional design form, there are specific instructions, and you will see this at the top of the instructional design form. It'll walk you step by step on how to complete the instructional design form. I'm not going to read all this, but you have 12 different instructions at the top of the form. This is an example of an instructional design form. So at the top of the page, just as I mentioned, there are 12 instructions for you up there at the top. And I think most of these fields are already filled in for you. And then along the side of the instructional design form, you have your Perkins course competencies, and then you have your competencies, and then you have your teacher name and so forth across the spreadsheet. So if you have any questions on the instructional design form, you can reach out to me or your program consultant. I think Mark Forbush is on the call today. So if you have any questions, please type them in the chat box. This is a crosswalk between segment to competencies. So this form, you'll be able to sort by segments or competencies. And this is just a crosswalk to help you with converting segments over to competencies. Okay. And Mark Forbush has typed, I am here, Valerie. So he's here to answer your questions. Okay. Also on the CTEIS website, you also have instructional design sheets there. If you go under, what is this? Perkins 5 Competencies Instructional Design, you can also get the information there. Zip codes reporting by segments will continue to use the existing instructional design form. So only if you have competencies will you use the new form. If you're still reporting by segments, you're going to use the old instructional design form. Okay, I'm going to stop for a second. Trista Jacob says, I am brand new to CTEIS, no training at all. So it is normal to say that I'm already super confused. Will there be step-by-step instructions for all this? And the answer is yes, Trista. You will have step-by-step instructions. And we are always available in OCTE to help. You can call the program consultant or you can call a data person, and we'll be happy to help you. And you'll see our contact information at the end of the slide when I finish. And Sean, don't worry, we are here to help you. Okay. All right. Work-based learning. Work-based learning was implemented in 2020, 2021. So there are no changes for this year, this upcoming year, 2021, 2022. There are resources available on our website. If you click on this link, the resources are for teachers, administrators, and coordinators. The resources are also on the CTEIS website under the special collections section. And you can click on this link to get that information. OCTE is working with student information system vendors to improve the ease of data collection. So I know Jill, myself, and Inchin in our office, we are working with some student information system vendors to make work-based learning a little bit easier to collect. Okay, fall teacher and course collection. Used to answer questions about number of programs and teachers operating for school year. So this is due to the CPED administrator September 23rd and is due to OCTE September 30th. Okay. And I know that was quick and fast, but this was just an overview for you. And all of these people on this slide are available to help you. Me, Valerie, Milton, Joan Church, Inchin Yee, and Jill Crow, we're all available to answer your questions. Do you have any questions now that you would like to ask? Okay, Stephen Billis. When you do updates in the memo section on the MDE website, would you please file them under the date that they are tendered rather than listing updates in the previous memo update? When the credentials list is updated in September, list in September, not in May. Stephen, are they able to unmute Doug?
Let me see if I can find him.
Okay. Oh, he said we can talk about this offline, so it's fine. Okay. I think I understand what you mean, Stephen, but we'll reach out to you to get some clarification on that. Any more questions? That was just a quick overview, so if there are questions, yep, Doug, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, sounds good.
Okay.
All right, so so this is the fall. This is the training for the fall to get you ready for all the tasks that you need to do in the fall, and we will be going over those in some detail. And for those people that are new, there's a couple already said, and we recognize that. For those that on Tuesday, we had a short new users presentation. And if you were not able to attend that, or if you'd like to view it again, we recorded that session and we put it up on the support, the CTEIS support website. And let's see if I can do this here. So this is the support.cteis.com, and you can go here. And if you'll find a lot of interesting information in here, if you go to data entry and then you go to enrollments, you'll find a lot of support documentation that you can go to. And as I was referring to, there's a new user set that has a new user's training guide, the PowerPoint that we based it our presentation on, and so the fall data entry set, and this video, I'm not sure if it's up yet, but this training video will, if it's not now, will shortly be the recorded session from Tuesday. I think we've got another one coming up in a week or two for new users, but we're kind of got to cram a lot in the first part of the month. So this website is support.cteis.com. And yeah, I just found out that it's not quite there yet, but we hope to have that up there in the next day or two. So you can go look to that. And you can also, if you go to CTEIS, it's just real quick. If you go to the CTEIS site at cteis.com, there's a bunch of quick links down at the bottom here. And someone mentioned that not all the links are working, and this is true. We apologize for that. We've had a lot to do in the last year or so, and some of the housekeeping of getting all the links connected kind of got pushed to the back burner, but we're getting all those cleaned up. But for the most part, if you can, like if I was to click on enrollment here, it will take me to support.ctis.com, and then I can look through all these links. And we'll be looking at some of these other links as we move on through the training. All right, so come back to the presentation real quick. Come back to this presentation. All right, so we did the OSC data updates. So just a little bit of an agenda of what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about mainly about the things that you should be thinking about in the fall. And again, if you are new, you can take a look at the new user set information. You can find out kind of, it gives you an overview of all the different things that happen. I mean, CTEIS is a very complex series of a lot of different data collections that happen throughout the year, and they give you an overview of that. But we're going to talk mostly about the things you need to do in the fall. And one of the things we're going to talk about is preparation. How do you prepare and get ready to put your data in? And we're going to talk a little bit about instructional design. And this refers back to some of the documents that Valerie mentioned. And then we're going to talk about how to put our courses and our staffs together, because the main goal is to get all our enrollment in. We do have a report that is due at the end of September called the Fall Data Course Review. And that needs to have courses and staff in it. And so we're going to address these first and show you how to do that. And then we can talk about how you can submit that report. And then after that, we'll talk about how to enter in students and enrollments and grades. We'll talk about how we can review all your data with your reports. And then we'll talk about some of the things that you need to be looking forward to as far as enrollments go that are going to be happening through the rest of the year and into the spring and to the end of the year. All right. So first thing, preparation. We need to make sure that we have proper instructional design. And the reason for this is that the one thing that we're trying to track in this, all this enrollment data is student progress. And if you have proper instructional design, you can make sure that the student's progress is accurately tracked. Now, someone made a comment in the chat, and I think it's good to emphasize again that many people on the line here are data entry, are what we call building reporters. They're responsible for reporting all of the data for their buildings. They are not the ones who are supposed to be doing instructional design. That should be done by the teachers and then the CTE administrators. And ideally, all of that information should be given to you. But it's important that you kind of understand how it all works, because again, if it's not entered incorrectly, or if it's given to you incorrectly and with obvious flaws in it, then you will potentially not optimize your students' progress, and that can affect other things. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. To begin with, just want to throw in a quick little diagram just to make sure everybody's on board with a couple of important hierarchical structures that are important in CTEIS. The first one is geographical, or the buildings, or the building, the geographical structure. The overriding, the biggest structure, of course, is OCTE in the state of Michigan. But within that, there are 53, I believe, CPIDs, or Career Education Planning District. And those align roughly to counties. And then within those CPIDs, you'll have one or more fiscal agencies, which are responsible for the funding and some other features. And then within a fiscal agency, you'll have one or more operating agencies, which roughly align to ISDs. And then within those operating agencies, you will have your operating buildings. And your operating buildings are where the training is actually occurring. And I make a note down there that you'll also have sending buildings. And these are a little bit different, because you might have a high school that doesn't have any CTE programs, but they send their students to the career center. So in that case, a career center would be an operating building, yet the high school will be a sending building. The majority of what CTEIS does is based on operating buildings. But there are some situations where you need to know the difference between a sending building and operating building, and we'll touch on that a little bit too. But you can also imagine that can have many permutations. You can have a high school that has CTE programs, in which case then that high school will both be an operating building and a sending building. So keep that in mind, because you will see references to CPIDs, fiscals, operating agencies, and operating buildings. And if you understand how this hierarchy works, if you're new to CTEIS, that will make this a little bit easier to understand how this works. All the data is entered in at the building level, but it's aggregated up and tabulated up to fiscal agency and CPID levels, and then up to the state level. So that's kind of how all of that grouping works. The second important structure to think about is how the programs work. And it starts with the career clusters. And those, I think there's, I don't know, I can't remember how many, 9 or 10 or something like that. And those define roughly the subject of things that you can do. And within that, you have the SIP codes. And the SIP codes are the classification of instructional programming codes. And those are put together by the feds. And I think that there are 52 this year. I think we just added a couple, so maybe 54 or something like that. SIP codes that are approved for funding, approved programs for funding within OCTE. And those are things like cosmetology is a SIP code. There's a couple of different IT SIP codes. You'll have a couple of automotive SIP codes, but they basically, identify what is being taught. And then the next layer down is you have the PSN, or the program serial number, and that represents a SIP code in a building. So it's an implementation of that SIP code. So you might have a high school that is teaching business, and in order to identify that specific business program in that high school, it has its program serial number. So you will see reference to PSNs a lot. And then within a program, you have the program type. And there are a couple of different types, but the two main ones are regular, which is just a regular program that operates within the high school. And then you have EMC, which is a fairly recent addition, which is the early middle college, which has some different rules and different requirements. But you'll see references to regular or EMC type programs. And then with that program, you actually start creating courses. And these courses are identified by their course section code. So within a program, you might have 3 or 4 or 5 different courses that are taught within a year or 2 years, depending on how big a program it is. And that's the actual, and those align to the actual courses that are being taught in the schools. And then within a course, you might have subsections. Subsections used to be required, but they're not so much anymore. They're kind of there for convenience. But a subsection, you can have up to 4 of them, allow you to have the same teacher in the same room at the same time teaching different groups of students different materials. So you may have in one classroom first-year students and second-year students, and those would be 2 different subsections. And then within the subsections, you have your segments or competencies, and your segments or competencies represent what is actually being taught. And we can talk about that in a minute. But this is, you will see these 2 structures a lot. And if you can understand the hierarchy, it makes a lot more sense of what you're trying to do. All right. And as I said before, the goal of the enrollment is to maximize student progress. And student progress is important because, as was mentioned in the previous slides show, it's important for funding. The more segments you have, or the more competencies you have, you typically go into a higher funding bracket. So you want to maximize student progress. And we keep talking about segments and competencies. The segments are from previous years, and they are from the Perkins 4 legislation. And we'll call those P4 classes or P4 courses or P4 programs. And those use segments, and the segments are based on standards. And based on that, we can, determining how many segments a student has over the course of time, we can kind of chart their progress through the program. And we have various measurements of that. One is a concentrator, which is important for core performance indicators, which is the federal reporting. And that is a student becomes a concentrator when they've had 8 or more segments. That should be, I guess, greater than or equal to 8. And then in the last, I think it was 2 years ago, we went to the newest legislations, the Perkins 5 legislations, which changed the definition of how we manage or report progress into competencies. And in competencies, a concentrator is measured as having 2 Perkins competency courses, and we'll touch on that in a little minute. Important thing is that we want to have a good design so that we maximize progress. And while you as building reporters are not supposed to be creating the instructional design, you are kind of like the gatekeeper to make sure that the instructional design is good and it's entered incorrectly so that we can maximize progress. All right. If we take a quick look at the Perkins 4 courses where you get, where you're using segments, again, for Perkins 4, you had the option of having 12 segments, and all of the standards were broken up into those 12 segments. And you would have a course. In this case, they would show course 1, which would have segments 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. And then in course 2, which would have 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. And then course 3, which would have 8, 9, 10, and 11. And then if the student took all 3 courses, they would therefore accumulate all 12 segments and would be considered a completer of that program. And so as you look at this kind of stuff, this is kind of what the instructional design is. And if I zip back over to here, hopefully I'm back onto the support.cteis.com page. One of the links on here that was referenced is this instructional design form. And in the instructional design form is a form that you can use or hopefully that you as building reporters are receiving to understand what the instructional design form is. But you can see that for a trimester course, a 1-year trimester course, you can see how they can plot out all the different segments in each trimester so that you can make sure that a student can get all the segments. So these sheets are out there that hopefully can be used. There's a variety of different permutations. There's a 2-year trimester example, a 2-year quarter example. So these are out there available to you on the knowledge base. All right. Now, as I said, Perkins 5 came in a couple of years ago, and we are implementing it into our student progress for the first time this year. So a lot of new stuff here. We're only doing, 7 SIP codes this year in that will use Perkins 5, which will use competencies. All of the rest of the SIP codes will maintain on segments. However, every year, or 7 to 10 or more are going to migrate into Perkins 5. So within 3, 4, 5 years, we will have migrated all the way over to Perkins 5. But this year, it's only these 7. And as Valerie mentioned in her slides, we have instructional design forms that are available. And if we go back over to our support page, this is again on support.cteis.com in the enrollment section. There's a section down at the bottom here that says Perkins 5 Competency Instructional Designs. And so If we click on that one and then open this up, this was cosmetology, and I bring that into view, you can see how these are the tabs that Valerie mentioned down here at the bottom. And you've got, first one is the program overview, which will identify what the competency codes are, how they fit into a PCC, what their actual definitions are, and how they map to standards and competencies and all the different things. And there's some more information about how these all work together and how they go into creating a good design. There's a crosswalk of segments to competencies because there is some concern about how if a student's in a 2-year program and last year was Perkins 4 and they're moving into Perkins 5, how does that work? And we've created a crosswalk that translates their segments into competencies. And there's a tool to view that, and I'll show you that in a minute. And then at the back is the instructional design example, where you can, for each year, you identify a course name, the teacher, if there's a subsection into it, and then which of the competencies are going to be taught. Now, cosmetology isn't always an interesting one because it is the upper limit. It has 35, I think, different competencies. And if you look at them, the PCCs are identified by in this case, the color, but also the letter prefix. So this one has, 7 possible PCCs. And to be given credit as having a PCC, a student must have attended a course where every single one within a bracket or a PCC or a letter designation has been achieved. So for a student to receive the A PCC, they'll have to have been in a course you get A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, A6. So that this information is available to you, and this is kind of a little bit how the instructional design works for competencies. A few questions coming up. Let me see. I understand that the segments can only be marked once during the program course. Unfortunately, the question is that can segments be, can a student be in a course where the segment, they'll in multiple courses receiving the same segment? The answer is yes, you can. In this case, the last slide where the segments, I think it was this one here, where they had 2 courses with segment 8 in it. There's nothing wrong with that. You can do that. And the same thing with competencies. If a student receives a segment or a competency twice, in this case, it also shows that you're going to receive the higher grade for that. All right. I think that answers that question. So who in this? Yeah. So is there, did it, okay. I'm just looking at the questions, trying to make sure I'm getting caught up with them. But the answer, I think, to the question in the chatter in there is that you're allowed to have, a student can receive the segment twice and they will receive the higher grade. Same thing with competencies. Apparently there's some confusion on this. I will double check on it, and I will update. I will put out some questions and answers, and we will address this. But again, for right now, this stuff should be being done by the teachers and the CTE administrators. The next question was, new to this, where do we find where the competencies are? As I mentioned, you can get, if we go over here, if these instructional design sheets can be found on support.ctis.com. And these are actually links to the Michigan.gov MDE site. And so you can find them there too. And I think links were in Valerie's presentation, which we will also put up. We will get that link up here too shortly. But you can find information about it. This one was the cosmetology one. This is the education one, and what have you. And then we'll talk a little bit later on about how you can put those into your courses. All right. So we got there. This is basically just saying that, you know, for the reporting process, we're collecting course data, student data, enrollment data, and grades. We need to make sure all the data is good. So this is just a little bit about how we collect it. To use CTEIS, the first thing you need to do is log into CTEIS. And in order to log into CTEIS, you need a MEIS account. And a MEIS stands for the Michigan Education Information System, I think. And it provides you with a credentials, which then we use to log into CTEIS. Shortly, we will be using my login, and that will be coming probably after the first of the year. We thought we were going to have it implemented over the summer, but there's kind of a backlog of programs getting moved onto my login. But we will be having more information about my login as that gets closer to implementation in a variety of different venues. Once you get a MEIS account, though, you need your FA or your fiscal agent authorized official to enter you into the system. And once you can do that, you can log in and get to work. So if you see here, you've got the CTEIS webpage, and the login page, the login link is in the upper right corner. All right. So first off, we'll start into a demo of how to create courses and staff, and then how to complete your fall course collection. We will do that. So I'm going to go back to here. This is our training site, and you can be found at train.cteis.com. You see that up there. And this is something that anybody can use if they want to practice doing this stuff. All you need is to have you need to have a login to CTEIS, and it'll work on the training site. However, we do make copies of the databases. So if you're just getting one now, you may need to let us know that we update the training site with, you know, brand new logins. But it allows you to log into the site. A couple of things first off for new people. The site shows you a lot of the due dates that are required. This shows you that the fall course collection is due September 3rd to CPIDS, and finally on the 30th. There's also the expenditure report, the follow-up report, which are due later on in the year. And then the final reports are all due in June. And some other important dates on here that you can look at. And anytime we do an update, we have a little bit of blurb here of what is updated and what you can look forward to and information. You can always come over here too if you want to get into training. You can click on this. It'll take you over to the support.cteis.com again, but it'll take you to the training page, and you can see all of the upcoming training that's available to you. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and log in. And if you don't have a MEIS account, or you're having problems with MEIS, there is a link here to the MEIS website that you can just click on there, and then you can look into getting a MEIS your MEIS account there. All right, so now we're logged in. Just a couple of quick things. If you're logged in and as I mentioned before, and you need to know who your fiscal agent is, or your CPET administrator is, if you click on your username over here, it will pop up a list. Thinking. It'll give you a profile. It'll give you, for all the buildings that you have assigned to you, who the fiscal agents are and who the CPEDs are, shown here. So with contact information. So you can look forward to that, or use that as a tool if you're trying to figure out who it is that you're supposed to be reporting to. All right. So you have a couple of menus up here, depending on what roles you have. For the most part, the data entry people will have just the data entry link here. And if you're involved in enrollment, you will certainly have the enrollment links here. If you're in a follow-up, you might have some follow-up links, but only if you're doing follow-up. But we're only going to look at the enrollment stuff right now. So we're going to start off with managed courses. When it comes to enrollments, you got to think that, the order of doing things is before you can enroll anybody, you have to have a course. And then once you have a course, you have to have a student. And then you put the student in the course, and that's an enrollment. So it's kind of the order that we're doing things. So we're going to start out with managed courses. And you'll get the managed course menu. And the first thing that we might want to do is create a course. So we can come over here and look to create a course. And it's asking me what building that I want to put it in. And this building list should be the buildings that you are assigned by your fiscal agent level 5. And if you're not seeing the buildings that you think you should have, start with talking to your fiscal agent. If not, then you can call our help desk, which I will mention a little bit later. But I'm going to start out with this one right here. And then once you identify a building, it will find all of the programs that are currently authorized to run in that building. In this case, this particular building only has one program in it. So I click on that, and it's going to pop open a page where I can put in specific types of data. First thing I need is my course section code. My course section code is my unique identifier for that course for that building. You can a course ID or however you want to do it, but that's typically what your student management systems are reporting as the unique identifier for that course. So I'll just say test brain draft. And then you might have, this might be like BR 34-2021. And then this would be intro drafting. And then you need to identify when start and end dates are. In this case, it's saying it's going to start on September 16th. And this I'm going to say will end on December 17th. Then I have to identify what kind of semester it is. Semesters are important. You can have first semester, second semester, which align towards the traditional first and second semester, or special semesters, which might be a summer semester or something else like that, or if you have trimesters. These are important for us when it comes to a lot of our processing. We need to know what types of semesters they are. So those are required, and they have to fit. If this was a course starting in January, I wouldn't have the choice of first semester. I'd have to choose second semester. So I'm going to choose first semester, room number, and it doesn't have to be number. I can put 12C in here. Course section period. A lot of times you might have a variety of different classes that have different periods, and you want to keep track of that. Like one's in period 2, one's in period 4, or something like that. And so you can put this in here. So that's available to you. You have your virtual delivery mode. The virtual delivery mode is a fairly new, but this has to do with whether you're using virtual methods. The default is not virtual. If it is an online course, you identify it's an online course. If it's blended, if it's a mixture of both, you may identify it as blended. If it's purely digital, then you mark it that. And there are definitions of these in the manual, and I'll show you where to find that later. So I'm going to say that this is not virtual. And then we have to select the appropriate type of course. And this kind of is where the EMC stuff gets into it, where it can be a secondary CTE course that has no dual concurrent enrollment college credit on college transcript, may earn articulated or AP credits. If I click on that, that lets me know that that's just a secondary CTE course. If it's a post-secondary CTE course, if it's, in other words, if I'm getting college credit for it, then I have to come down here and I have to put in what are the high school credits and what are the college credits. And that is required. It's going to give me a problem if I don't put something in there. So I'm getting 3 credits for this. And there is a link to a guide here that you can look at too. This little section over here just gives you some information about the program. It is the zip code 1301 is a drafting design. It's a regular P4 type class. This is the PSN number. It's in CPIT 3. Its fiscal agency is Dixon Iron ISD, and its fiscal agency number. And then its operating agency, and then the building it's in. And a lot of times you'll see that the names of buildings are followed by numbers. That's just because that everyone has a code, and this has to do with the schools and the state's entity master, and that matches those up. So this gives me the basic information about a course. And then since this is a P4 course, I'm expected to enter in segments. And as I said before, I can have 4 different subsections, and I identify, if there's only one subsection that's going to be teaching 1, 2, 3, and 4, I would do that. But if subsection 2, if I have 2 subsections, I would put it in that way. And if I had 3, I can put it in like that. The Q subsection is reserved for advanced topics, and they're typically only assigned for students who have completed the program. And there's more information in the manuals and in, on the OCTE website on Q. If I'm required to have a segment, at least one segment in one subsection in here, so I can create something with A1. Then I can go and select a staff. And I have 4 different types of staff. There is the primary, additional full-time, additional part-time, secondary full-time, and secondary part-time. Again, those are defined fuller in the manuals. But if I want to get a primary staff in here, I can click on that and I can type in, let's see here. I type in a letter, and then once I get to 3 points or 3 letters, it'll give me a list. I can click on that. This enters that student or that staff member as primary. It's just telling me that until I hit update staff, that staff member is not going to save. So I have all this information in here. Hopefully I have everything I need in here. I hit add course, and the little thing here tells me that I successfully added the course. And then if I came down here, right here is my new course that I just added. So that's how you add a course. In many cases, when it comes to fall, you're not starting from a blank sheet. You have previous courses, and you have a standard set of courses that you might run every year. So there's a couple options that you have on how to get started based on what you've had in the past. You can come up here and you can go to Mass Course Renew. And Mass Course Renew will allow you to renew courses. And what does that mean? Well, when you have a course, it's considered to be active. And last year you had a bunch of courses that you used and you ran and everything was good, and you want to reuse those same ones. And so it allows me to look at those courses and say, okay, I'm going to use this one, I'm going to reuse this one, this one, and this one, and it renews them, creates a new course record, advances the dates, and copies all the relevant information over into the new implementation of that course. So I will click on Dickinson Iron ST, and it shows me on the right side, these are all my current year active courses. And so I've got one and again, since this is looking at a district, and if you remember the hierarchy that I have multiple buildings in a district. So when I look at this district, you can see that in that district, I have multiple buildings in here. And then within a building, I have multiple courses in here. So I can come through and say here, all right, well, I want to take these 3 welding classes. I want to renew. So I'm going to come down here and identify those. I don't have to, I can pick and choose how many I want to renew. And I select renew. And it's going to move them over. And it's going to give them, it's going to forward their dates and create new courses that I can use then. So that's something you can do at the beginning of the year. If you just plan to reuse all of the courses that you used in the past, just use the renew. And then there might be a situation where you say, oh, I want to renew these, but these dates are a little different. I need to change these dates. So what you can do is you go now into Mass Course Edit. And there's a couple of different things you can do in here. But one of the things you can do is update a course. So I can select my district. And I can identify which ones I want to look at. So let's just say these 3 graphics communications. And I can go to update courses. And I can change the begin dates, the semesters. One of the things I can also do is change what the credits are in there. So I can grab a group of them and put the credits in there. So this is a way to modify groups of courses all at the same time. And I can change like the courses and the modality, which is the virtual and all that kind of stuff. I can also, another strategy for attacking your fall tasks that some people like to do is they'll just go in and they say, well, I don't really like to reuse anything. I want to start fresh, but I need to make all of the courses from last year that were still active. I don't want them to be active anymore. I want to have no courses to be active. So one of the things I can come in here and do is I can select the classes that I want and just deactivate them, and it will deactivate all of them, and so that I have no courses and I can kind of start over from there. So that's available to you too. Also, so I've showed you how to create a new course from scratch. I showed you how to renew them. I showed you how to mass update them or mass deactivate them. And if I need to tweak them individually, I can come back here to manage courses, select my district. And again, I will get all of the buildings in that district. And this is an expanding list here. So if I click on it, it'll expand. But it will list all of the courses that I currently have in here. In this case, it's going to list all of the active courses, because something that you can do is if I find a course down here that's active, that it's in the previous year, I can grab that one. And what I can do down here is I can't update it because it's last year's course, but I can just renew it one by one. So I can click on renew. I can deactivate it one by one if I want to do that, or I can copy it, in which case I just maybe just this one class I want to use. And so I can copy it, in which case I would go in and I would update all the information I'd want in here, and I can copy it. So that's an option that you have available to you also. One thing I do want to show you real quick though is if you'll see in this column here that you have Perkins 4 and Perkins 5 types of courses. And if we looked at a Perkins 4, you can see that I have my segments and my segment profiles. If I look at a Perkins 5, in this case it's automotive, I have my competency profiles. And you'll remember that the Perkins 4 class had 12 segments, and they were identified 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Each zip code will have a different range and a different PCC groupings of all their competencies. So you'll see here that my automotive has A123, B123, C123, 4, 5, and a Z, and the Z is the equivalent to the Q, which is basically advanced topics. And it does not count as a PCC when you're looking at progress. And you're only supposed to be using Z when everything else is done. But if I see if I can find another one here. So we've got P4, we've got another P5. So here's Health OC. And if I click on that one, I get a whole different set of competencies. So these will align based on what the zip code is. And then you can come in here and put these in here as necessary and update your courses. So at that point, I'll stop and see if anybody has any questions on how to create courses, how to renew courses, how to edit courses, and how to differentiate between your Perkins 4 courses and your Perkins 5 courses. Looks like somebody's typing real quick. So, and again, ideally, as building reporters, you will be receiving instructional design forms that allow you to create these without, it should just be able to transcribe what the courses look like and what the information is.
Questions from, you want me to read the questions in the chat?
Oh, I didn't realize. I've scrolled down. I thought it scrolled for me. It stopped. I said, oh, no one had any questions. How nice. Okay. Let's see. Okay, Mark.
I think Jenna typed in the first. I miss being able to just type in the date. What will we have this option again?
They can take. Okay, so it's a question. I miss being able to just type in the date. Will it ever happen? You can type in the date here too. I think. Maybe not. Thought you could. Maybe not. We can look into that. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to type in the date. I guess what we think is useful and efficient isn't what other people do. So we will look into typing in dates. What if the course reporting is in competencies, not segments? Hopefully I addressed that. One of the things to think about, and I don't know if it's seeing it, there's a situation. I think I mentioned that if you have courses that were Perkins 4 last year and you're renewing them into Perkins 5 courses this year, the process, normally if I'm doing a Perkins 4 course to a Perkins 4 course, it will copy the segments. But a Perkins 4 course to a Perkins 5 course will not copy segments into competencies. You will have to go in and fill those in manually. So if you find yourself with some Perkins 5 courses and you do renews, you will have to go back in and enter in the competencies manually. The instruction, the PowerPoint, I was finishing it up this morning. That's going in after we're done here. So I will get that PowerPoint done and get it in. We're also going to, again, have the recordings of this one or one of the trainings we do. There's, as I mentioned before, and I don't mean to make excuses, but this has been a busy fall with a lot of new things going into place, and there's still a little few frayed ends here and there. Things like times on dates is one of those things that we need to go back and clean up. And now that we're kind of got all of the stuff in, we're going back in with a second pass and making sure that we're polishing it up a little bit. There has been some issues with Mass Course Edit. We've made some changes in the last couple of days, and we're still tweaking that. If people are still having some issues, again, we are familiar with some of the issues with Mass Course Edit, and we're on top of it. And I apologize for those that are having issues with it. Can you Mass Course renew if you've already reactivated? Unfortunately, you cannot mass course renew if you've already deactivated all your courses. The renew implies that you have an active previous year course. So it's kind of, you go one direction or the other. You can't go both. Yes, and again, there's some mass course edit dates that I think we made we put something out yesterday, but there's one or two other tweaks that we need to do. PCC stands for Perkins Course Competency or Perkins Competency Course. Can find out if we go to enrollments, pull this up again. PCC, doesn't it tell me on here somewhere? I thought it said PCC. It's in there somewhere, but basically it's a Perkins Course Competency or Perkins Course Competency is what a PCC stands for. And they use that term because they wanted to differentiate a PCC from a course. And so that's kind of how they wound up with that. All right. Can a competency listed more than once in a PV course, instructional design? A competency can be listed more than once in a PV instructional design. The idea is that you might have courses that have overlapping competencies, and that's okay. It will just take the highest grade. Will this use computer assessment before competencies in the PX? Yes. One of the things that we're still working on, and I was going to get to that at the end of the presentation, is that we have a lot of reports that are based on Perkins 4 reporting. And we are, now that we have all the rules and all the data collection, we understand how the Perkins 5 is all done. We're having to go back and readjust all of those reports. So yes, the computer assessment report and some of the other ones, instructional design report, a lot of those reports are going to be refitted to handle both segments and competencies. Some of them, not exactly sure how we're going to do it. They may wind up having a different, a P5 version of it and a P4 version of it, just because it's hard to map out 12 segments versus 35 competencies versus 10 competencies. So, all right. So let's see if we've got, what is the advantage of using renew versus copy for courses? Again, it depends on what your, renew, if you're going to do a renew, the process is that you take an existing previous year active course and create a new current year active course and deactivate the previous year's course. So it's a process, and our courses aren't reused. We have a new course definition every year. So last year's course isn't used for this year. So to make it usable for this year, we either have to copy it or renew it. And if I renew it, I deactivate the previous year course. If I copy it, I don't. It's really. If you copy it, you leave a previous year active course available, which at some point you'll have to deactivate. The copy is really designed for if you have two courses that are similar and you just want to make another, something like that. The copy is just that. You make a copy of the course, but you do not deactivate the template course. Hopefully that makes sense. Yes, there's some of the deactivations. We're cleaning that up about old courses. We're making sure we get that done. Will you have to create new courses for PV courses since they didn't exist last year? Probably, and that's one of the reasons why if you try and renew, it doesn't try to translate your segments into competencies. Pretty much the expectation is that if you got a Perkins 4 program moving into Perkins 5, that you will likely have to revisit your instructional design, and that stuff is going to have to be new. Have a MEIS login and the CTEIS login is separate. If you have a MEIS login, the way MEIS works is you create a credentials in MEIS, and then when you log into CTEIS, it checks MEIS to see whether your credentials are valid. And so it's not like you're logging into CTEIS or to MEIS and getting access to CTEIS. CTEIS is using MEIS to validate your credentials. It's like if you've ever used Facebook to log into some application. When you start it up, it says, "Would you like to log in via Facebook?" Facebook takes care of validating who you are, but the application just uses Facebook in the same way we use MEIS. And that's the same way that and it's going to be more like Facebook with my login, in that when my login comes along, then it's going to, when you log into CTEIS, it's going to take you to my login, and you're going to have to be logged in there. So, but more on that later. Be able to track progress to the computer assessment. Yes, the computer assessment is a report, and we understand how important that is to people, and that's high on our list of priorities to make sure it gets addressed. Importing courses, that's coming up next. I just wanted to talk about this stuff first to see where we are. And Stephen's comment in the end about, yes, if you even if you have a login in MEIS, your fiscal agent has to enter you into CTEIS. So if you're trying to log into CTEIS and it's saying it doesn't recognize you, you may correctly have a MEIS login, but it hasn't been connected to CTEIS yet, and you need to talk to your fiscal agent to do that. All right. Let's see here. All right. So I think we're all caught up. So yes. Let's see here. Go there. So we talked about managed courses. We haven't really talked about staff at all. Let's talk about staff first before we get into. So I'm going to switch screens again. All right. So you'll notice that when you create programs, that you will have to create a staff member, and so I'm going to, one of the things that, the staff apply to more than one course. So you typically have those entered in ahead of time, and you can do that going to manage staff here. And to manage staff, it lists all the staff, and staff are interesting because a lot of these teachers will work in multiple districts in multiple areas. And so they don't really belong to anybody. But you can go in here and you can look them up. They're all identified by PIC numbers. You can add new staff by filling their information in here and clicking on Update Staff. It will check that they have a valid PIC number. And this year, one of our late fall projects is we're going to be upgrading the managed staff area, and it's going to be a little bit more robust in its checking of staff. And so you may find yourself having to relook at staff that have been in the system for a while, and that's because their PIC numbers, for whatever reason, have been changed or invalidated. But we're going to have more steps and more validation and more requirements for staff in the short term. And this is to make sure that the staff that we provide to STEPI for the statewide reports is validated with what they have a little bit better. So this is one way that, once you created the staff, then you can add them into a course. So once I add them in here, then I can come back here and I can create a course. I can go back to here and do this here. And I can add the staff name. And if I need to, I can update, I can, go in here. And the one thing I can update here, if I edit this, is if they're a mentor. And again, mentor is defined in the documentation, and then you can look into there for that. So imports. So we're working on imports. Imports had to change around a lot of it this year because of the nature of competencies. But we will be able to do it. We're in final testing today. We're hoping that maybe tonight we can release it, or tomorrow we'll be able to release it. But it's going to look like this. If we go, just a real quick question about deleting staff or retired or left our list. That is something that it's always been problematic because staff will leave one district and go to another, so we really can't delete them. So we're trying to figure out that you should be able to, add a staff that's from anywhere in the state. I mean, send me or John a question about that, and we should be able to help track that down. So you should be able to do it, and there shouldn't be a trick to it. So, yes, we will let you know when. Yes, we will let you know quite readily when imports are available. But real quick, going into imports. So if I go into the support of the knowledge base and I go into imports, you will find down here a course Excel import specifications and template for Perkins 4 and 5. If I click on that and open it up, this is what the template is going to look like. And this is the spreadsheet that you'll use to put in your data. And it starts out with some information about it. And it gives, it tells you what's in here. And this tells you what the validation rules. So in other words, that the data you put in has to pass all these rules before it'll be imported. And this is what a Perkins 4 example looks like. And it's very similar to, if you've done this in the past, it's similar. But if you haven't, this is what it looks like. You have to identify when you import a course, it's going to ask you what building, and then so that within that building, so you have to group all of your imports by building, but then you can identify what the course section code name is, what the PSN is, what the local course name is, the room, hour, the virtual delivery method, what semester, the begin end dates, the pick num of the staff. And so this has to be a valid pick num, whether you're doing dual enrollment, and if so, how many college credits or high school credits are in there, what the subsection is that it's supposed to be. And then you identify what your, we're calling them units are. In this case, for a Perkins 4, they're segments. And you're going to identify the segments by number. And so this particular course here, the welding 1, is going to have segments 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then the second course is going to have segments 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And the third one would have course Q, or segment Q. And you can put them, you can create the spreadsheet this way. So it kind of looks like an instructional design, and it might help you make sure that you're getting all of your segments in correctly. So that's an acceptable way to do it. Or you could do it this way, where you just have them all flush left. And so you have 1 through 6, and then 7 through 12, and Q like that. So either one of these ways will work. The important thing is that since this is a Perkins 4 class, and it's going to figure out it's a Perkins 4 class by taking your PSN, looking it up, determining whether it's a Perkins 4 or Perkins 5. In this case, it'll say it's a Perkins 4, and it's going to say that it must have segments. And so it's going to look to these values and make sure they're just numbers 1 through 12. If they're not numbers 1 through 12, if they're yeses, or if anything, and say segment 1 or whatever, it's going to error out. They have to be 1 through 12 plus a Q. And so, and this just example for Perkins 4 shows how you can do it spaced out. with the advantage of looking at spaced out, so you can look at the individual segments. This one shows where you can flush them left, and this one just shows that you can do it. Doesn't, you don't have to pick one or the other. You can do it both ways. So that's a Perkins 4 import. A Perkins 5 import would be very similar in that you're going to put all your details in here, just like the Perkins 4. But then you're going to put in your competencies, and you're going to list them per course. In this case, this course has A1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and B1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this one, the second course has C1, D, and D, and then the third one, E. And you can do it the same way with the Perkins 4, where you can space them out so that it kind of looks like an instructional design. So you can look at all these and say, okay, in these 3 courses, I've covered every one of my competencies. Or you can flush them all left, or you can do both. The things that's important about the template, and if we go over to this last slide, this shows you what the template is. These are all the required fields. And so you have to have a course section showed, PSN, local name, all of these. And then you have to have unit 1 through 35. And that's to make sure that we don't, we're going to look in every one of those. We're going to look for a column for each one of these units, and then we're going to look to see if there's anything in it. And that allows us to be able to spread them out or flush left or do what we did before. But you have to use this template. Now, a lot of times people ask questions about, can I have other data on this template? Yes, you can. You can have other information on this template. You can have other columns on here that maybe your student management system spits out, or something that anything that's not one of these columns will be ignored. But you must have at least these columns in here. There are some things that will be defaulted to, like dual will be defaulted to no. Virtual delivery will default it to not virtual. If you don't have a subsection in here, it'll default to A. If you don't list any segments or competencies, it's just going to default to the first segment 1 or competency A1 in subsection A. And that might be helpful, as soon as we get the imports up, when you're just trying to put courses in and you don't know what your competencies are yet, and you're thinking, well, how am I going to get my course report done for September 30th or September 23rd when I have no idea what to do with competencies? You can just leave all of this stuff out for now, import your courses. It'll just default to a competency A1 in subsection A. And then later on, you can reload this file with all this stuff in here and fix all those competencies. So again, for the fall course report, you don't have to have your competency profiles right in there. So you can just leave this off and just put in your course information. So that's an important thing that hopefully gives you a little bit of breathing room, that you don't have to have competencies put together for the fall course report, and you can still use imports even if you don't have competencies in there. And these imports are designed to be run repeatedly. And the rules are, if you look over here and you say the rules, if the course section code in the building is new, a new record will be inserted. If the course section code exists and is active in the current year, then the course will be updated. If the current course section code in the building exists and is not active in the current year, the existing course will be deactivated, and the new course section will be added. So you've got inserts, renews, and updates all in there. So there's a way to do that. And you can take advantage of these imports to put in just your course data to satisfy your fall course report. And then later on down the line, when you get all your competencies figured out, you can take this file that you've created and add the competencies to it, re-import it, and it'll update all of your courses with the competencies. So hopefully that will be useful. Let's see, a couple questions. Any segment? Any number, segment columns, you could really list it in any of the unit columns, correct. For instance, over here in this course, here I've got D4 in AH, or I've got D4 here in unit 8 or unit 20. It doesn't matter. What the system is going to do is it's going to read each one of these columns and then find out what's in, and then create a list of what's in them. So it doesn't matter if you are missing anything in there. And if it finds nothing in there, it's just going to, like I said, default. So you have the ability to spread them out or scrunch them up. The one rule is you can only have one competency or segment per column. And then if the other rule is if for some reason I put an A1 here and then put another A1 here, it's not, I guess I don't have editing on there, but if I had A1 in there twice, it's only going to take A1 once. So if there's any duplicates in here, it will ignore them. And the other thing is if I'm running this a second time, it's going to take, if any new information that is provided will be overwritten. If I don't put any information in there, it'll be left alone. So if I left the, I guess if I wanted to update the college credits for some reason, and I didn't put in any segment information in there, all the previous segment information would remain intact. So can you reload and write over a course later? Yes, you can reload over a course later. That's fine. Even if you have enrollments in it, it doesn't matter because it's going to make sure your course section code and your course ID aren't going to change. So therefore all your enrollments will be fine. The one thing to note though is when you kind of touch on this a little bit later, when you enroll a student in a course, it takes some values of that course. For instance, it will default to any college credit or high school credit on the student record. If I go in and change the course credit information after I've enrolled students, it will not update their credit information. So that's the only thing that you got to worry about is if I'm changing course information after I've enrolled students. But as far as the subsections, as far as the subsections and the segments in the credentials, those will be fine. All right. So look to that. Let me see if I can do this. That's not what I wanted. So this is kind of what it's going to look like. This is our development site. So you're not going to be able to see this, but you're going to want to come in here and you're going to be able to pick a program. And then you're going to import a course file. And where did it go? That's a student import. I lost my import. Wow. That's not it. Where is it? It is in, I'm running through my, there we go. So I open this, it goes through and it will read each of the courses. And if it's it looks at the PSN, it'll check it. And then if it's missing stuff, you'll get reports about what's wrong in there. And then, you can export this back out or you can upload it to the database. So this is kind of what it's going to look like. So that's just a brief look of, it's a little bit different. The other thing that's nice about it is we're using some new tools in here that manage the data a lot faster. We've had some issues in the past about large imports bombing out, and hopefully we've addressed that and that won't be a problem so much anymore. All right. So, all right. So go back to here. So talking about managed staff, we talked about edits, we talked about imports. So everybody good on that? If so, then we will go ahead and we'll talk about, let's back up. All right, so now that I've put in all of my courses, or the courses I want to. The fall course report, in this case, it's called the Building Course Review. This is what is going to be due in September 23rd. And basically what OCTE needs is a list of all the courses and all the staff that you're intending to run for that year. And they need this information to streamline their planning and other information to make their jobs easier, and so that they can be more proactive about the kind of support and the kind of resources that they need. So it's a very important report that helps them do what they need to do. And so we need to get it out. And so the expectation is that, to the best of your knowledge, you enter in all the courses and all the staff that will be operating CTE programs in the coming year. If it changes, that's not a big deal. But if you enter in one course and at the end of the year you've got 100 courses, then you may get a phone call. But if you enter in 100 courses and 1 or 2 changes, then that's not a big deal. So, but the idea is that we enter in all our courses and we do it the way I've described. You make sure that they all have staff. Then when you're ready to review it, what you can do is you can come over here and you can select the district you're looking at. All of the types of collection reviews that we do are very similar. You pick a district, it will list the buildings, and then you have some way to view or validate the building. In this case, to validate, you just need to look at it and verify it's correct. So in this case, I will view that. It will list all of my current courses that I have ready to go, and all the dates and the primary instructor. And then once I'm done with that, I can mark it complete, and it'll pass it up the line to the fiscal agent so that they can do their job, and then the CPID can do their job. If I want to export this, if I want to get a list of this, I can click on this button and I can get an Excel export where it will show me what my classes are, so I can use this for my own, whatever I need it for. So, all right. So you can't see what I'm doing. I apologize so much. All right, let's try this again. Start over. So this is the fall. If I go into data entry and click on building course review, I will arrive at the fall course completion page. As I said, these are all very similar. And whenever we do our collections, you identify the district, it will list your buildings, and it will tell you whether these have been completed or not. And I will click on view. And in this case, for the fall course completion, the validation and the view are the same thing. I'm not really validating whether your courses are right or not, other than it will note that if you are missing staff on here, it will identify that to remind you to get your staff in there. But this lists all the courses that I have created for this year for this building. And they do want to know courses and programs. So then I go and once I'm ready for it, I click on complete. And make sure I clicked on that right. Oh, there we go. So once I've completed it, it will mark it X, and I'm basically that will send an email to the fiscal agent, and I'll let them know that they're ready to review it, and then that sends an email to the CPID, and that lets them know that they're ready to review it. So this is all you need to do for the fall course completion, and you need to do it for all the buildings that you're associated with. They all need to have a check and X in here. So this is what you need to do for the fall course completion. You'll notice that I don't have to do, it doesn't look anything at enrollments. It doesn't look anything at segments or competencies. So those don't have to be completed. Those can be in an intermediate state. It just needs to know the courses and the staff. All right. So, so now, if I go back to here, we talked about course imports. We'll go ahead and we'll run through students real quick, and then we'll take a break. I think that should get us somewhere, this is about 40, half an hour, 45 minutes or so. All right. So to manage students, we want to, obviously, if we're going to look at enrollments, we need to have students. And so in some cases, every year, you're going to need new students. And then in subsequent years, you're going to reuse existing students. So it's a couple of different ways you can do that. Start off first, let me make sure I switch my screen again. I can look at students by going to manage students. And in manage students, I will select a building. So in this case, it's 7. And again, you'll see all these different buildings that have been signed to me. And then the numbers behind them, those are just the building numbers. So maybe I'll pick Athens High School. And it will give me a list, and this is an obfuscated list, obviously. And I can look in here. These are all the students that have been currently enrolled from this building as a sending building. So again, this is we're looking for students that are being sent here from this building. Something to keep in mind that I can search by UIC or last name just by typing something in here. I can then clear the input. I can also, this defaults to only those that are currently in school. If for some reason I need to find or research a student who's left school, I can click on that and it'll allow me to search and list students that have left school. I can also use these boxes up here to do a search. I can click on these up here to sort. So I could sort by the sending facility or by last name. Again, these are all obfuscated, but I could search this way if I wanted to. So then when I click on this little student button over here, it'll pop me open the student information screen. And in here, it has all of my various demographics. I can put their names, first name, last name, middle name, their date of birth, gender, the phone information. Phone information is important because we use that for follow-up. And it helps us contact them later on. So it's always good to make sure we've got a good phone information. You can have address information. The state, everybody has to be a Michigan resident. Email, again, email helps later on for contacting. And you have to identify the sending facility and where they're coming from. This box over here shows what their UIC is. And once it's entered into the system, it can't be changed. If you realize that you have a student that has an incorrect UIC, then contact the help desk and John can help you fix a UIC. We do have a UIC checker. Every time you submit a student and various times during the day and the year, it will go in and check that UIC to make sure it's valid. And this is done through a tool that StepBy provides us, StepBy being the Center for Education, Performance, and Information, which is the Department of Education's computer group or technology group. But they provide us with a UIC checker that will check a variety of different things, and it'll make sure that the UIC matches the first name, last name, middle name, and date of birth, and that's valid. It also makes sure that it's the primary UIC. If you run into issues with it not being the primary UIC, we have some documentation on how to address that. If we go back over to the knowledge base and you see UIC error resolution guide. So there's a guide in there that will help explain some of the errors you might get when you check a UIC. Just some of the other things in here. You've got the pick user's guide if you need to update staff picks. How to, if you're just curious about how to use staff, there's staff instructions, and some little smaller snippets on how to do specific tasks. All right, so back to here. It also tells when the last time it was checked. Now, this is important because you could enter in a valid UIC and something else going on in the state could change that student's UIC. And when we do a check later on, we'll find out that that change invalidated the UIC, and that'll tell you when that happened and some strategies to how to fix that. So you can also manually check a UIC. So if you want to see whether if some of our UIC checking processes are done in batches in the evenings, especially if you're doing a large import of students. We can't check those in real time, so we check those in the evenings, but you can force a check by clicking the Check the UIC button here. Some of the other information that's important in this box down here, all of this information comes from, or all the information in the blue comes from MSDS, or the Michigan Student Data System. We take the UIC and we, when we're up and running and everything's going well, we do it every couple of days where we will check the MSDS for a valid, current, up-to-date MSDS record and update all these information. Things like whether they're LEP, what their grade is, the exit status, race, ethnicity, all these different special populations come from MSDS. And it's important before you can submit your final report in the summer, spring, summer, that you must have a current as in within the school year update of the MSDS record. So this tells you when the last time the MSDS record was updated. Identifying single parent out of workforce, those do not come from MSDS. So if this student is of that type, you need to individually select those by clicking on those and then updating the student. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. Just looking at the questions. The clarification is about what, do you need to have every course? And the answer is no, it's one course per instructor per program. So, so that needs to make sure that you identify all the teachers in there in the program. So, and we'll make sure that we update that in the materials. Some other things that you can find out about students down here at the bottom. There is a box that will list the current programs that they're in. And this is important. If they're in multiple programs, you'll see multiple items listed here. This student is only in one program. Some reason something happened in all our updates that this is supposed to be a button and it's not highlighted as a button anymore. So that's on our list of getting fixed. But if you click on the zip code, it'll pop open a list of what their program detail and program enrollment details are. And right now this only shows what segments are. And so we're working right now to add into this what the competencies would be. It also lists all their courses and what their grades are. And this is good if you have a student that doesn't look like they became a completer, isn't progressing the way you think. You can come back to this page and you can look at it and kind of see what the data says this student is doing. It also will list the individual courses that they're in, or the programs, so that you can, if you need to, you can update their individual student credits for those particular courses. Down here also, if I have credentials for this particular student, it will list all the credentials. This particular student doesn't have any credentials, but that's available too. And as I said, we're looking to add competencies in there. If I want to add a student, I just click on add, and then I get a blank form. I fill it all out. I need to make sure I identify where they're coming from, and then fill all this information out. And once I put a UIC in there and check it, it'll verify that the UIC is correct. Okay. So this is basically students. And once I've created students, then I can go and enroll them. But trying to think if there's anything else I want to talk about students. Let's see here. What did I have on my? So I've managed students. We've talked all the things you can do with students, and that's good. One thing that when we're thinking about the program enrollment profiles, if you have a student that is transferring from a Perkins, or not transferring, if they started last year in a Perkins 4 course and now they've migrated into a Perkins 5 course, you may say to yourself, well, what happened to all their segments? And what we've done is we've gone through and we have a segment to competency crosswalk. And if you want to see what that looks like, we can go back to the knowledge base. And back here, down here in the Perkins 5 Competencies Instructional Design, the first link is a student competency cross tab quick reference. And if you click on that and open that up, and I'm not showing it to you, am I? Well, I will do it now. So this was, I went to, see if I can get this. I went to here and I clicked on this link right here on the knowledge base. And then that opened up this here. And this is a quick reference crosswalk that will tell you for each one of the Perkins 5 SIP codes, what does each segment give you? So in this case, I've got construction trades, which is 460000. If I had received segment 1 last year, that was good for A1 and D1 in competencies. And then for 2, it's good for A2, D3, and D4. And you can see that we have a crosswalk for each one of these segment to competencies. So we took these crosswalks and we ran it across all the students in the system, and we create a report that it's here. No, it's in the reports here. It's in the competency profiles. And you can run it for various reasons. It doesn't run on my training program here, but it looks like, it's going to look like this, where it will take whatever program you have and it will list all the students that are not completers and have not left school that are still enrolled in the program, and will show you what, it will list their name and their UIC, and then show you what competencies they've received based on the segments that they have. So when you're going back and trying to figure out, okay, where are my students in terms of where they are in the transition from Perkins 4 to Perkins 5, we're hoping that this report will be very helpful and allow you to see what the, where they are and how they progressed. And you can kind of look in here and say, this kid's got all the A's and all the B's, so he's probably got 2 PCCs, so he's a concentrator. Or that they've, looks like they've got all of them, so this kid's actually a completer. These kids down here are missing a few, so they've got some more work to do, kind of thing. So that's available. And again, that's in here in reports, and it's under competency profiles. So we've been at it for a while, almost 2 hours. I was going to plan on doing a quick break. Why don't we do, everybody good for a quick break? Let's do maybe 15 minutes. I think we're making good time. We still have to go through enrollments and then review some reports. So we got maybe another hour's worth, hour and a half, depending on questions. So, if you want to grab your lunch, if not, or if you just want to wait a little bit, we'll do that. But let's go ahead and take a 15-minute break, and we'll come back at 11:10. How does that sound for everybody? So I will do this. Let's see, break time back at 11:10. All right, so quick break.